Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Weekly Rundown. Joining me as always is co-host and NFL Ironman London Fletcher. London, last week was a bloodbath. Again, a bunch of injuries in the NFL, which obviously is going to happen in such a violent sport. But let's go over some. Andrew Luck slated to miss 2 to 6 weeks. Dion Lewis out for the year. Malcolm Floyd suffered a torn labrum, which supposedly he's going to try and play through, but we'll see about that. Let's start with Indianapolis. Do any of the wide receivers interest you moving forward without Andrew Luck?
Ah, maybe Andre Johnson. I would probably look at maybe even some of the tight ends. You figure with Hasselback having the football, he's going to get the ball out of his hands a lot quicker than Luck. So that may limit T.Y. Hilton's ability to go deep down the field. So maybe look at more some of the intermediate type of guys, whether it's the tight ends or either Andre Johnson, who's more of a possession type of receiver at this stage in his career.
Yeah, I was relying on Dante Moncrief, but without Luck, I don't think he's the wide receiver two that he was, unfortunately. So he definitely takes a hit, and their whole passing game takes a hit. Let's go to the Patriots with Dion Lewis out. Does James White immediately step up and take that exact role, or do you see the backfield shaping up differently?
He'll definitely be in that role as far as the receiving running back. I would think Blunt is probably going to get more carries now. As we know with the Patriots, you just never know week to week how they're going to attack a team, whether they're going to decide to run the ball 20, 30 times, and feature Blunt or attack a team in the passing game. I can't say for certain that you all of a sudden would say, hey, James White is going to be able to replace, Dion Lewis, because a lot of what Dion Lewis was able to do was make people miss once he got the ball in his hands.
Right.
White's not on that same level as far as being able to make people miss and get the yards after the catch.
Yeah, and we already saw Brandon Bolden factored in. I thought Belichick had been actually more predictable this year than he had been in years past, but now who knows? This
Who
this could
knows
put a dent.
exactly? So it
This
may
could
be
put a dent to
Brandon.
that.
Bolden may be a guy that steps up. You just never know, man.
It's so frustrating, and I think we're back to the old you just don't know with him. All right, we've got Keenan Allen has been announced that he's on injured reserve, which hurts. And like I mentioned before, Malcolm Floyd has a torn labrum. He says he's going to try and play, but I can't imagine you would be very effective playing with that. So, do you like Stevie Johnson or Dontrell Inman or anyone in the passing game more now? And do you think both those receivers are viable?
I would say probably looking at Stevie Johnson more. He had 7 receptions, on Monday night against the Bears. So you figure he'll probably get a few more targets. Maybe Gates will get a couple more targets, and obviously you have to worry about Woodhead getting more targets. But Inman, he's shown the ability to make a few plays. Obviously, he's going to get more playing time, and Philip Rivers, he goes to everybody. So they're both viable, but the one who I would say right now for certain it would be Stevie Johnson.
Yeah, Stevie Johnson looks like he's going to take on that Keenan Allen PPR, catch a bunch of passes role, which for
Yes.
fantasy draft is obviously very, very good, and Rivers will sling it. So I think Stevie's going to be too cheap for a while. You can look to him.
Right.
All right, let's get to the picks. Here are mine going into the week. I do think it's a week that you can pay up for the quarterback. I was looking at the top guys. I stared at Brady. I stared at Rodgers. But when constructing my roster, I think there's too much value, at least in cash, to go Blake Bortles. He's reasonably priced, and I actually think this game is going to be a shootout. It's Jaguars Ravens. He's scored at least 26.44 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4, and this is Blake Bortles, who's priced really very close to the minimum. And team they head to Baltimore, that's allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So we know that they've been dominated. They are a little bit tough on the tight ends, so I'm not loving Julius Thomas this week. But Allen Robinson, Allen Hearns, all the usuals. I think they're going to have a big day. I think you can play all of them. Who do you like?
You know, uh, I got a guy who's priced even less than your guy Blake Bortles, Kirk Cousins. Going against the New Orleans Saints, man, and it doesn't get much worse than the Saints as far as pass defense. They're 30th ranked defense in the National Football League, but they've given up 24 touchdown passes. That leads the league. Giving up the 24 touchdowns. So I like Kirk Cousins, and you don't have to spend a ton of money for him. He's priced even less than Blake Bortles. If you want to go a little bit more expensive, I think Andy Dalton against the Houston team is a good matchup as well. Houston is ranked high, pretty fairly high against the pass, but they have given up 16 touchdown passes, and you look at the weapons that Cincinnati comes at you with, it's too many guys for Houston to just say we're going to go in and focus on just one guy.
I assume you saw that video with Kirk Cousins screaming, you like that after one of his wins. It sounds like he was talking to you, and London does like that this week. That's
I like that for this week against the Houston. I mean, I'm sorry, against the New Orleans Saints.
I'm actually going, and I don't disagree with that, but I'm actually going a different spot in the offense. Let's go to running backs. I'm going Matt Jones, mostly because his price has shrunk all the way to 6,400, which is almost the absolute bare minimum. And this is a guy who gets a dozen or so touches every week. And we're talking about the New Orleans Saints, who have been giving it up to just about everyone. When you look at it, only the Panthers, Giants, 49ers, and Falcons have allowed more receptions to running backs. And we know Alfred Morris just not going to catch any passes. So I think he could see more work in the passing game. And at 6,400, he's only got to catch a few to get to value. In cash games, it makes you be able to spend everywhere else. I think it's a week you could spend a quarterback, a tight end, anywhere. So I like Matt Jones. And the other one I like is from this shootout game is Justin Forsett. I already mentioned Bortles, but Forsett's going to see a workload in a game where his team's projected for 26.8 points, which is fourth highest of the week. And it has been proven there's a correlation between their Vegas total and fantasy points for running backs. So keep that in mind moving forward. The Jaguars have allowed 8 rushing touchdowns. Assuming he doesn't get vultured by, Buck Allen, who comes in at the goal line, I think he could cap off, a nice day with a touchdown. But I like him regardless. Who do you like?
I like the starting running back on the opposite side of the field for in that Washington New Orleans game. I'm going with Mark Ingram. You look at the Washington Redskins defense, and over the last 4 games, man, they're giving up. Let's digest this for a second. 187 yards per game over the last 4 weeks. I mean, my goodness, that would rank last 32nd in the league, even behind the Cleveland Browns. If over the course of a season, the Browns give, I think, about 147 yards a game. The Redskins over the last 4, 187 yards per game. I like Mark Ingram. He's gonna get his catches. Also, you talk about New England being able to make some plays in the passing game with the running backs against the Redskins. Last week. So you figure he's going to catch passes, and he'll have a fairly good matchup. And when it comes to running the ball, another guy I like from a matchup standpoint, Doug Martin. And Doug Martin's price is starting to come down a little bit. This week he's at about 10-8 on FantasyDraft.com. You look at the Dallas Cowboys defense, gave up 172 yards rushing against the Philadelphia Eagles. Doug Martin, he had been doing pretty good up until this past ball game. I look for him to bounce back. They were the Bucs were playing from behind, didn't run the ball as much against the Giants. So Doug Martin is a guy I like.
It's funny you talk about both Doug Martin and the Redskins defense, because I wrote a piece a few weeks ago how the Redskins defense, people were citing them as a good defense against the run, and I took a look at it, and they had played teams that just weren't running the ball against them, but they were averaging a good yard per carry. I mean, we were talking about Joe Philbin with Lamar Miller. We know he wasn't giving him the ball enough, and there were a couple other instances where the yard per carry was nice, but they weren't doing it. And then now we see once teams run against them, they're getting it done. And I like Doug Martin. I think it was week 5 against them.
Lamar Miller may be a good play for some people as well, going against the Eagles. So he's
Yeah.
You look at McFadden was able to have some success running the ball against them as well.
Yeah. That is it for the first half of the weekly rundown. Stay tuned when we'll look at wide receiver, tight end, defense, and have London answer all the questions.